Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for staying through. I mean, I was looking back with my records and I realized that the first time I asked you was in September.
It's been a difficult time for everybody, hasn't it? So,
oh dear, it has been. It has been. But
yeah.
I'm glad we're here today. I'm glad we're here today. So welcome, Gill. Welcome to the Praying Carer channel. Yes, so the Praying Carer channel is dedicated to parent carers.
Yes.
Alone, and we discuss issues. I try to steer us away from talking about the children, right? Because that is the first thing we talk about, and talk about all the, you want to introduce yourself or a mom to, I'd say, you know what, we're not talking about the children, we're talking about the carer. Because yes. I realize that there's so much that we do and so many, discussions and conversations and help and support that we have for the children. But when it comes to the carer herself or himself, there's support out there, but at times they might be far in between, and even the carer herself, from my own experience, might not even know how much support they need because the focus is always on the child, so those are the kind of conversations we have on the channel, and I'm just glad that we're here today to do this. Then, apart from talking and having different interviews, we do prayers once a month, on the channel as well, just to commit ourselves to God, receive strength and encourage one another as well. So yeah, welcome. Right, so I mean, as you're aware, this week was International Women's Day.
Absolutely.
We're celebrating and all that, and the theme was breaking the bias. And I thought how apt, yes, indeed, I wanted to do this in September, but I think it's actually more apt now and more relevant now than probably what it would have been back, as a last year, so breaking the bias. And the focus for us this morning is on carers who, I tagged it as the carer's career or the carer and her career, because from my experience as well as, professionally, some of the families that I've related with, I've done a bit of research, not huge, but, a pot of research is here and there. So we see carers, women who have fantastic, work career before they have a child or children with special needs or disabilities. And immediately that happens, it puts a stop to everything. It puts a stop to everything. And you see that at times they're actually not able to find themselves back. On that track, so those are the things that I thought, let's bring this up. Some would love to, I met people who were financial experts before, was working in the financial industry, before some HR, like myself, as human resources, and different careers that are fantastic businesses even that people would have, but immediately you have a child with disability, the demands of that terrain just kind of sucks that off, and it becomes far at the back burner. And when you don't get it back, it tells a lot. So I've structured the interview. I've structured it into 3 phases today, and we will like you to wear different hats, so that we can have a more holistic view to the conversation. So the first part, so we'll talk about yourself as a mother, because I see that, we are mothers first before we become parent carers, or carer, as
that always my mantra was family first. You know that.
I know. So I want us to start with that. I mean, I was looking through your career, your profile that you sent to me, and I thought, how do you match that? Where do you start from? Almost 50 years of marriage. Yeah. Tell us about that. How have you come?
Well, we were childhood sweethearts, and we just, knew from the start that we wanted to be together, and against all opposition. And there was a lot, because obviously I was so young, and also my husband's family said, you're too young to make this sort of commitment. But we went ahead and did it anyway. We saved hard. We bought our house when I was 18, and we didn't go out partying. We just saved our money. And then later on, children came along. But yeah, I think 50 years of marriage shows that you really have to give and take. You have to allow each other to grow, and to develop and have your own interests. But actually, I think that makes you a more interesting partner for your husband, wife, partner. It makes you more interesting. You come home, you've got things to tell them, they've got things to tell you. We lived in completely different worlds, completely different. My husband, haulage company, man stuff, mechanicking and driving lorries and running a family business, and me in a completely, different world. So yes, I think it works. We sort of trusted each other and gave each other support, and loved each other, and that's all you can do, really.
Indeed.
Be there in the bad times and enjoy the good times.
And you're always about the moment, and you're always in the moment. What you have now, let's do that first, and then we can move on. So how did you manage as a mother, young mother? I mean, I've read some things, but if you tell us a little bit about that, how did you manage transitioning from a mother, gradually handling the children, handling the home, and then into place of work?
Well, I think I worked in the city until I had the children, so it was only 6 years that I was there. But then when Hannah came along, I got postnatal depression, like so many women do, but I had a brilliant mum. She saw me through, got me back on the right track, and when Katie came along, just 16 months later, so quite quickly, I kind of sailed through it. I thought, I've done this before, I know what I'm doing now, so it's fine. I went to all the right groups, joined mother and toddler groups, went to antenatal classes, would speak to other mothers walking down the road that were pushing a pram. I was never sort of shy and coming forward in that respect. Made a good group of friends, and we supported each other through, all the difficulties that come with babies and teething and sleepless nights, and suddenly you don't look the same shape as you did before, and your husband looks at you and thinks, what happened there? And you think the same. So all those things we saw each other through. And then I did get a little bit bored, I've got to say, but I was very fortunate. The nursery that I was taking my eldest daughter to said, would you like to come and do a few days work here? Well, actually, the other one's only 2. Fine, bring her along. So we kind of went on that journey together. Sometimes I look back and think maybe for my youngest daughter, that really wasn't fair. But she thoroughly enjoyed being with other children. I don't think it hurt her in any way. And from that, I then thought, right, I like this early years childcare. I'm going to investigate more. So then I found courses I could go on and do it all part-time. And I went back to college and got my early years qualification. And about 2 years later, the lady that was running the nursery said, actually, I'm going to retire. Would you like to run it? Yes, I will. So it's kind of like opportunity that comes along as well. But, it's a very hectic time for women. You run out of the door at 9 o'clock, you go to nursery, you run back again at 12 to pick them up, or in my case, run back home. You're back at 3 to pick up the other children from school. It's very difficult to make that time for yourself. But I think you have to think when the children go to bed, it's very easy to sit down in front of the television or listen to your favourite music. But I use that time to investigate the courses that I could do and work. And later on, sort of jumping ahead, that's what I did with Open University as well. And once again, having an understanding husband who didn't mind me disappearing up to the bedroom, because that was the only place where it was quiet, to sit and study. He even put up with a desk and a computer in our very small bedroom, let me tell you. It's just, I think it's just a juggling act, Funke, and you need a good support system around you. I couldn't have done it on my own. I had a good husband, good parents, great friends. and they let me spread my wings and do it. I think otherwise, and the kids were good as well. They knew mummy's studying, go annoy daddy, you know. So that it's just, yeah, it's getting your head around it. I've always been quite a determined person, and if I decide to do something, I'm going to. So, yeah, and so yes, it worked, but I thoroughly enjoyed having the children, and I loved all going to we used to go to the 1 o'clock club with a group of friends. I don't know if they still exist, but it was great. Lots of activities for the kids, lots of times for us as mums to sit and chat, you know, put the world to rights, talk about things apart from the children as well. But have great fun doing craft sessions and cooking with them. And yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of getting your head round. You're kind of having a three-way split in your life. You know, you've got your marriage, you've got your children, you've got your career. And I think you have to work out how much time you're going to give to each of those, and then take it forward and don't back down.
I would know that. And I hear like setting boundaries there as well, for the children especially.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, there's lots of time for the children. I mean, my girls, they went to dance classes 4 nights a week, and on the 5th night, I took them to brownies, and I was also a brownie leader. So I was kind of there with them at the time then. But, you know, they'd come home, they'd already had their tea, they'd have a bedtime story, go to bed, then it's my time. Then it's for me to do what I want to do. And, you know, some nights I was too tired even to drink a glass of wine. You know, I just sat down and fell asleep. But other nights I got on with what I wanted to do. And it's about, and I think you need to value yourself and make yourself feel better by achieving something. But also, if all you've achieved that day is to get the little one to use the potty, then that's great too. You know, you've achieved. So celebrate what you do.
Indeed. Thank you so much for taking us through that. I mean, the world has changed, as you noted in your profile, from what it was then. I read you saying there was no maternity leave, and that.
No, if you just, I know I am really that old. If you decided to leave, I'd forgotten about that, and it's so relevant to women now. When you decided to have a child, you left work, and because you were going to be out of the game for at least a year, probably, and they didn't hold your job open for you. There was no maternity leave, so you gave up your job, and then you very much were dependent on, you know, your family to look after you. In a way, I have to say, in a way, it was good because the choice was made for you. You didn't have to think, gosh, do I want to carry on with my career? Do I want to find a childminder or a nursery? Is that being fair to my children? Walking around with guilt on your shoulders, like a lot of women do, because they think, I ought to be spending more time with my children than I am at work. That was all taken away from us. And although I don't agree with that at all, women should have choices, I kind of think in a way, for my generation, it was easier. You're home with your kids.
Yes.
But then when you went back into it, you didn't sort of go full blast into it as well. I didn't go, right, okay, straight back to the city. I crept into a different profession, almost by chance, fortunately, because I loved it. And I could go sort of step by step, little by little. I wasn't sort of, right, okay, you've had your 6 months maternity leave, you're coming back now. You can negotiate, as you know, to come back. But lots of employers will say, no, our business needs mean you have to come back full time. That's jolly hard. It's jolly hard. So I do think, you know, there's pros and against in both situations. For me, it was like, well, that's the end of that career. And if I go back to it, I've got to apply for a new job and rely on my CV to get me back in there. Whereas women now can rightly so go on maternity leave and go back to their job afterwards.
Yes.
But likewise, I didn't have to make that difficult decision. It was made for me. So I could just concentrate on being a mum for a while, which I also enjoyed.
Indeed. Thank you so much for taking us through that journey. So how did you find yourself in the SEN world? Special education needs. How?
Do you know what?
Take us through that journey. Yes.
So many people have asked me that. I'll tell you how it happens. My daughter made friends with a little girl at school. and they were in nursery together. So this was when she was 2, she started nursery. And she had a lovely mum, and we became good friends. And I then found out that her son had quite complex disabilities. He was at Rectory Paddock, which is now called Riverside.
Okay.
And I was quite surprised, horrified, I don't know, to find that she was quite excluded from going out with some friends. Some friends would say, oh yes, come along, bring Sarah, don't bring Andrew. Not in words, not in so many words, but it was obvious. Yes. And actually, I was sort of quite surprised about that, because when we all went out, we all were holding my car, and Andrew came too, wheelchair, off we all went. And my girls thought it was great, and we all managed it, and it was fine. And that's how I became interested in SEN. So then I started volunteering 1 day a week at Rectory Paddock, and then I started doing more studying, and then they offered me a job there, and the rest is history, So, but yes, that's how I became involved, not through any family member of my own. Yes. And I'm also very aware of that, because I haven't walked in the shoes of a parent, and I can't imagine what that could be like. I can't. But I loved working with those children. Some of the happiest days were at school. And we had a lot of fun, and they had so much about them. So many interesting characters, so many fun days. And so many little achievements, which were just so to be celebrated. When somebody would just remember your name, or bring you something when you thought, I've asked, I've shown them 100 times and then they don't do it, and then one day it would just fall into place, and it was wonderful. So that's how I sort of started doing it. So it was really through Andrew, and I always tell him that when I see him. And Andrew is I think he's in his late 40s now.
Wow, bless him.
Yeah, exactly. And I always tell him, it's thanks to you, Andrew, that I've had such a great life, really, because I've so enjoyed my work.
And let me we put this out, your profile, the one, so maybe a photograph to say, parents, because I know that I was going to be doing this with you today. It wasn't live. It's not going to be live. So I said parents, so I could get their participation as well.
Yeah.
Just any questions,
yes,
comments to ask and all that. And the first person, I don't know if you could remember her anyway, but I thought I picked 2. I said I was going to just read those to you today. So the first person that that responded, to that post, is Hope Wellington. I don't know if you can remember her. She said, I don't have any questions at the moment, but would you just like to say a big thank you to Gill for all what she did to support Zina many years ago? And I was so touched. I said, look, you were saying, yes, you've not walked in our shoes as a parent carer, but I know that you have what we need in terms of the experience, yes, and the heart, for us and all that. And when I saw this, I was just so glad. I said I wouldn't tell you earlier, I would tell you today. That was the first one. Now, of course, you supported so many families, so I'm not sure, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you're not able to recall the names and the children and all that, but that came through. And then another one from Sue. Sue said, I haven't got a question, but do say hi to Gill for me, Funke. I agree that she's an amazing advocate for people with learning disabilities and really cares. I enjoyed working with her at Bromley Menke, and she was always willing to give advice about aspects relating to Kathy's care if I needed it.
Oh, I know that lady very well. Actually, I do remember them all. It's not me, I don't remember. But, that's so kind of them. That's so kind of them.
So what you did, I mean, you were saying, oh no, you do not walk in the shoes, but yes, you worked alongside a lot of families. So can you tell us about your career? I could see much more with Bromley Mencap. You had some with Marjorie McClure and all these, different projects that you did.
Okay, so I spent some time at Riverside, and then I spent nearly 5 years at Marjorie McClure, and that was interesting because I worked with different children with different needs. So I thought that was a good basis. And then I really didn't need the school holidays anymore. I worked on the summer schemes, which I thoroughly enjoyed, because once again, a different aspect of care and support. But I decided that I could do more. I didn't need to be having, 13-week school holidays a year. So I looked around, and Bromley Mencap were advertising for a childminding network coordinator to set up a new scheme, childminding for children with additional needs and disabilities, so that their parents could either go back to work or, as we used to say, spend some time with their husband, or just paint their toenails. Whatever they wanted to do, it was all right with them to use this time. So managed to get a grant, and it was only for a year, first of all, and the target was to get 20 children placed with childminders. So that I'm thinking, well, in that case, I need to recruit 40 childminders, because it's a big borough. Where are they all? They can't travel too far. And we were lucky that at the time, the transport for the borough, we met with them, and they agreed that they would, if the childminder was on the route home, they would drop them off. They wouldn't divert very far, but they would.
Yes.
So that was a really interesting project. I had to write a training scheme for childminders. So I was very involved with the National Childminding Association at first, did a lot of research with them. And we set up this training program, and we got experts to come in and give people taster sessions. Like we'd get somebody to come along and do a taster session in Macton, and also in communication. And then somebody came along from the Autistic Trust to talk about autism. We had a parent always come along and talk about their feelings about having a childminder, and this precious child, and what it was like to perhaps have to trust that childminder to look after your child, and the sort of things that they were looking for in a childminder. And so this scheme developed over the years, and we met our targets. We got 20 children in place by the end of the year. So then we were then able to go off and secure funding from so many different places. Spunky, I was always writing for bids to get funding, and we got it from all over the place. And eventually, Children in Need were giving us 3 years at a time, which was brilliant. But that took a long while. Then I had parents coming to me, rightly saying, actually, my child has got much more complex needs, might have medical needs. I don't feel that these childminders necessarily have got enough experience. So again, okay. So we developed Network Plus, and that we had a nurse come and train the childminders so that they could administer, EpiPens and sort of epilepsy treatment, all that sort of thing. And once again, we had a target, and we got enough children. So that was the childminding network set up. Then we had each thing sort of followed on, really. It was amazing how it grew. We had people coming and saying, we really are interested in the training that you've been giving childminders. Could you do something for us? And that was preschools and healthcare. I went up to King's College once and did it for nurses and things. So I got together with a couple of other people, and I wrote a training book around disability awareness. But all the time I was able to draw down what parents were telling me. That was what's most important. By always speaking with parents, going to their homes, getting to know them, I was able for them to really tell me what they wanted in it. And that was what was most important. It was about what they wanted. And I developed the training scheme, and we ran it in schools. for staff as well as for children. It went everywhere. And then following on from that, I then became like the family services worker, because I was visiting families so much, and they'd say, oh, can you do this? Can you do this? And there was an opening for that role. And I was very interested in extending my work into that area. So then went on to do family support. And I only did that for about 18 months. And then circumstances ended up, I became the manager, which was interesting. And I started off managing about 4 or 5 projects. And as you know, I ended up with about 25, I think. But it was good because we were able to get funding. And when we had a brilliant Icky, our fundraiser was brilliant. And he would look at, we were telling where we thought gaps in the services were, and he would go off and find the funding for it. And then with everybody's help in the office, we would be able to develop a new project. So we had the independent living scheme. We had the scheme for carers, the older carers scheme. We had siblings group, didn't we? Started when Bromwell came along. We had loads and loads of projects came online. So we split the 2 departments into an adult services and children's services. But we also had the EHC plan, all the work that you did. So that was another 3 members of staff, I think, that came on board with that. All parents, which was great. All brought their knowledge, which is what we need. Yeah, I mean, crumbs, you could probably remember more than I can.
We have mutual carers as well.
Yeah.
At some points.
Mutual carers was very useful. And then, of course, we had the, in the adult section, we had the learning disabilities and the physical disabilities, which came along with Bromley-Well. So they would be running groups in, like the lodge, because that was another development.
Yeah.
The training.
Yes.
Yeah, the lodge was developed really under Caroline, did most of the work for that, I've got to say, although I just kind of kept an eye on it. She managed that and did a brilliant job. And it's a training centre for young people, and they come along and they could do horticulture, bike repairs, or sort of some, I don't know what they were running the kiosk. So they were sort of working as in that sort of like leisure industry, so to speak. And that's still going strong, and that's brilliant.
Yes.
So we also had at Astley, we ran a Saturday service. So that was a respite service for people with complex needs. So that was on a Saturday, and that was very successful because once again, those families didn't feel very confident about leaving their children anywhere. But Astley had all the equipment and everything that we needed. We had a very well respected senior nurse running the scheme, and the staff that came and worked on there generally had experience of working with children and young people with SEN anyway. So, you know, a sort of really top class staff group. And I think that's been something that's been the success of our schemes. We've always had the best staff. We've always made sure that the staff were on the same page as us and wanted to give their best, you know. And I think that's why we had quite a stable team for quite a long while.
Yeah.
Oh, you are exalted. You are exalted. You are